So, CPAC's vision is that all families will have the confidence, knowledge, and understanding they need to effectively advocate for their children and to partner with professionals to ensure that children and youth grow and learn to their full potential. Our mission at the Connecticut Parent Advocacy Center is to educate, support, and empower Connecticut diverse families of children and youth with any disability or chronic condition from birth to age 26 and the professionals who serve them.
Our learning objectives today include to gain an understanding of assessments and grades, to gain an understanding of dyslexia and other reading disabilities, to gain an understanding of steps to take when concerns arise. If we have time at the end, we would be happy to answer some questions. However, for a more in-depth conversation about your particular child or your students, we encourage you to call CPAC, the BSC call center, the Office of Reading and Dyslexia and Reading Disabilities. We understand that navigating the large amount of information around this topic can be difficult, and we encourage you to call with questions or concerns. Before we really jump into the content, I want to give you a little bit of background information about myself and my why for being here. I began my career as a middle school social studies teacher at an international school. A few years later, I moved into an administrative role and eventually stepped away to focus on raising my children. But I've always stayed connected to education. My first real encounter with dyslexia happened early in my teaching career, though I didn't realize it at the time. One of my sixth graders, Cynthia, was this bright, creative, full of life 11-year-old girl from Mexico. She loved to draw, made everyone laugh, and spent a lot of time in the principal's office. I knew she was struggling, and I was determined to help her. But nothing I tried seemed to make a difference. She doodled during reading time, her homework was messy, and she got frustrated easily. I thought maybe she was homesick or that the language barrier was making things hard. Eventually, she was diagnosed with ADHD, and I followed the suggested accommodations, but still it didn't help much. When she left at the end of the year, she hugged me. I will never forget that hug, and thanked me for helping her. But deep down, I knew I'd missed something. Years later, I was tutoring college students, and my very first college student that I was working with happened to be dyslexic. And at the same time, my daughter was struggling to learn how to read. When I asked my child's teacher if it could be dyslexia, I was told to wait and see. That approach didn't work, and it was a long, stressful journey to get her identified and supported. One night, after hours of researching how to help my daughter, I suddenly remembered Cynthia. It hit me like a ton of bricks. Cynthia was probably dyslexic, and I and the rest of the staff had missed it. That moment changed things for me. I share this story because most teachers truly care about their students. We do the best we can with what we know. My goal now is to empower families to work together with educators, to ask questions, share insights, and build partnerships so that no child slips through the cracks the way Cynthia did. Sorry. To understand reading and reading disabilities, it's important to recognize that our brains don't automatically know how to read. There's a great deal involved in learning to read, and it must be taught systematically and explicitly. Learning to read goes beyond simply teaching phonics. There are multiple components or strands involved in this process, all of which are interconnected. We need both word recognition and language comprehension to become proficient readers, which is shown in the diagram. In the 1990s, Dr. Hollis Scarborough introduced a visual representation of reading using the image of interwoven strands in a rope to illustrate the different areas involved in reading. When all of these strands are intact, students are able to read successfully. However, when one or more of these strands is weak or broken, students may struggle. It's important to understand that both strands of the reading rope are essential for success. Phonological awareness is a pre-reading skill that needs to be intact at the auditory level. It has nothing to do with letters. It's all what we hear. It is important to ask your child's teacher how your child is doing in this area. And teachers, it's important to assess in this area. It is usually a skill that is learned at the preschool and early elementary school age. If your child is struggling in this area, especially if they're older, you will want to work closely with your child's teacher. This video explains that phonological awareness is a broad term. What we really want students to be able to do is to take sentences apart word by word, break syllables down into their individual speech sounds, and we want them to be able to take sounds apart within a word. This is a video from understood.org, and it's Margie Gillis, who is one of the owners of Literacy How, and she's going to talk a little bit more about phonological awareness.
Can be taken
Can you hear it?
apart. And
Yes.
phonological is referring to the sound system of language. It's something that we do auditorily. We're listening to words, we're listening to sentences. So it's not about what we're seeing, it's all about what we're hearing. Phonological awareness skills can be done with your eyes closed. Phonological awareness is a broad term that encompasses language in different sized chunks, if that's one way to think about it. So sentences can be taken apart word by word. So young children can clap or march to "I like ice cream," and we get them to really be able to take those sentences apart word by word. And once they get that concept, we can actually get them to clap the syllables in words that have more than one syllable. Elephant, giraffe, and when they can do that, we go to the next step where they have to actually break those syllables down into smaller units. Those units are referred to as phonemes. A phoneme is a speech sound. And before we even introduce kids to the fact that these sounds are represented by letters, again, at a listening and an auditory level, we want them to be able to take those sounds apart within a word.
So the National Reading Panel produced a report and identified 5 essential areas of reading, including phonemic awareness, which is a part of phonological awareness, which is recognizing and manipulating individual sounds in words, phonics, which is understanding how letters and sounds work together, fluency, reading smoothly and with expression without frequent pauses, vocabulary, knowing and using words correctly, and comprehension, understanding and analyzing what is read. For example, summarizing a story. This chart is adapted from the Connecticut State Department of Education's version. Now that we understand what it takes in order to learn how to read, we're going to talk about what happens if your child or your student is not progressing in reading. It's important to note that dyslexia is one reading disability, but there are others. This chart explains 3 different reading disabilities. Students can have a specific word recognition difficulty. Students struggle with recognizing words, reading fluently, and spelling. Their oral language skills are strong, but they need structured phonics instruction and fluency practice. Many students in this group are identified with dyslexia. The second one is specific reading comprehension difficulties. These students can read words accurately, but have trouble understanding what they read. Their challenges often stem from weak vocabulary, background knowledge, or difficulties making inferences. Instruction should focus on building comprehension skills. The last one is a mixed reading disability. These students face challenges with both decoding and comprehension. Their difficulties go beyond poor word reading. They may struggle even with read alouds. A combination of phonics, fluency, and comprehension strategies is needed. So tonight we're really not going to go into, it's a presentation about dyslexia, so we're not going to go into all three reading areas in depth. But the key takeaways in this coming up video is dyslexia is a brain-based condition. It has nothing to do with intelligence. Dyslexia makes it hard for students to read, write, spell, and a number of other areas. There's also a family link. So a parent or sibling might have dyslexia, even if they're
Learned
not
so much
identified
about
yet. Sorry. Reading and spelling are difficult for students with dyslexia because they have to hear the individual sounds and words and understand that each of those sounds are represented by one or more letters.
We've learned so much about what dyslexia is and isn't. We know it's a brain-based condition that impacts reading, spelling, and writing, but it's not a problem with vision. Dyslexia is a problem with understanding and working with language. Dyslexia is a lifelong issue that tends to run in families, so there's often a parent or a sibling who also has it. And brain imaging studies have shown us that there are differences in how the brain is structured and how it functions in people who have dyslexia. But it's important to know that dyslexia has nothing to do with intelligence. Children with dyslexia are just as smart as other children. We can see signs of dyslexia even before children learn to read. Reading is a complicated process that starts with being able to recognize individual sounds in words. Take the word elephant. Most children at a young age can recognize 3 parts in that word. Elephant. But the child with dyslexia might not hear that "phant" is actually made up of 4 different sounds. F, I, N, T. They may only hear 1 or 2. Reading and spelling are hard for kids with dyslexia because first they have to hear those individual sounds, and then they have to understand that each of those sounds is represented by 1 or more letters. Children with dyslexia usually have difficulty with this basic language skill, which is called phonemic awareness. So you might see your child having trouble with rhyming or isolating the sounds in words. That makes it difficult for your child to match letters to their sounds, like knowing that S sounds like S or that SH sounds like sh. This skill is called decoding, and children use it to sound out words. We know a lot about what can help children with these skills. The most important thing is specialized reading instruction. A well-known approach is called Orton-Gillingham. It helps children to learn to break words down into their component sounds, match the sounds to letters, and then blend those sounds together. Reading programs based on Orton-Gillingham use multisensory techniques. So children might trace letters in sand while saying that letter and its sound, or clap out syllables in words. These methods are proven to be effective. There are also tools like audiobooks, text-to-speech software, and reading apps that can help children with dyslexia. You can help your child at home by reading aloud together every day. Choosing books that tap into your child's passions can help develop an interest in reading. Playing rhyming games, reading nursery rhymes, and singing songs can also be a fun way to help younger children build early reading skills. It's important to know that even though children don't outgrow dyslexia, they can become skilled readers and strong learners. With the right support, they can succeed in school and in life.
I would love it if people would put some thoughts in the chat of those 2 videos. If there was any key takeaways that just really resonated with you, I would love to hear them. So this is Connecticut's working definition of dyslexia put out by the Connecticut State Department of Education. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act includes dyslexia under the disability category of specific learning disability. In Connecticut, if the planning and placement team determines that a student has a primary disability of specific learning disability and needs special education instruction through an IEP, the team is then required to determine if the specific learning disability is dyslexia. One of the ways that the team does this is by filling out a form called the Multidisciplinary Evaluation Report, or for short, the MIR form. We'll explain more about this later. Connecticut's definition includes the following. Dyslexia is a specific learning disability affecting reading and spelling. It originates in the brain and is not related to intelligence. It's caused by difficulty processing sounds in language. Early detection and targeted teaching can reduce educational challenges. It's not due to vision, hearing, or lack of instruction. It's not caused by external factors such as intellectual or emotional issues, lack of proper instruction, cultural, economic disadvantages, or limited English skills. So at this point, you're probably wondering what are the signs that your child or your student might have dyslexia? I think in one of the videos you heard Margie Gillis say that the signs can be there even before a child starts to learn how to read. We're going to go through some of the red flags. Please note that not all students will exhibit everything listed, and that this is not a comprehensive list. Identifying these signs early, though, allows for interventions and can support language and literacy development. Parents and educators should seek professional guidance if multiple red flags are present. So in preschool, mispronouncing words is a big one. Betty Tear instead of teddy bear. Paspaghetti was another one that my child often would say for spaghetti. Saying things and stuff instead of naming common objects, so can't really find the word for things. Trouble learning nursery rhymes or singing the alphabet, telling stories that are hard to follow, and difficulty with directions with multiple steps. In grades K through 2, I won't go through all of these, but trouble learning their letter names and remembering the sounds that they make, that's a huge one. Struggling to read familiar words like cat, especially if there aren't pictures. Substituting words when reading aloud, like house, when the story says home. Another one that my daughter used to do a lot of was saying cloud instead of could because it looked similar. And struggling to remember how words are spelled. In grades 3 through 5, confusing or skipping small words like for and of when reading aloud, frequently making the same kinds of mistakes like reversing letters, spelling the same word correctly and incorrectly in the same writing passage, and avoiding reading whenever possible or getting frustrated or upset when reading. Older teens and adults read slowly or skip small words or parts of word when they're reading out loud. And they might have trouble getting jokes or understanding idioms, puns, and abbreviation, and taking a very long time to complete reading assignments.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for laying the foundation. So now that we have a baseline and some foundation and we understand what dyslexia is or have a better understanding of dyslexia and its signs, now we're going to talk about meeting standards for reading. So grades, we're going to start with grades. Grades don't always tell the full story. A student's grades do not necessarily reflect their actual academic level. Students' grades include things like effort, participation, attendance, work completion. These factors often contribute to grades, but do not indicate mastery of grade level content. We're going to share a video here, which is called Beyond Grades. It's a powerful reminder of a family school partnerships, how communication can affect family engagement and student outcomes. And again, bear with me while I set it up.
It turns two words into one word.
Sharita,
Sound it out. What's the first three letters say? What's the first three letters? Act. It turns two words into one word.
Sharita Jones is a hands-on mom.
That's what you were saying.
She felt her daughter Christiana was doing well in her last school, especially after all the time away from the classroom during the pandemic.
Christiana was a great student in class, not a behavior problem at all. I thought that she was doing great from the last report card.
But when her daughter Christiana moved to a new school, she learned her good report cards had not been telling the full story.
It was extremely surprising to find out that she was on a lower reading level than what I thought she was.
The new school's assessments showed the 9-year-old was actually 3 grade levels behind.
Add the rest of it in there. True. Lee.
Actually,
So what's the word?
actually.
Exactly. Actually.
Good grades can be deceiving. Maya Martin Cadogan is the founder and executive director of Parents Amplifying Voices in Education.
What we actually know is that many kids are not on grade level, and that grades are oftentimes reflecting things that are not just about academics. They're reflecting behavior, attendance, participation.
In fact, there's a dramatic disconnect with parents when looking at their own kids on how much academic learning has suffered since the end of the pandemic. Nationally, 9 out of 10 parents, regardless of race, income, or geography, believe their child is at or above grade level. But just 26% of 8th graders are proficient in math, and only 29% are proficient in reading.
Parents were just doing their best to make sure that kids were able to access school as it was, but that doesn't mean it was what it should be.
Not will, W-I-L-L.
So, what should parents do?
Parents need to first just ask questions of their child's teacher. They need to ask what grade level their children were reading on, what level math their children were doing, and then ask what you can do at home with your child in order to support them, and what additional programs they might need access to extend their learning through summer programs.
I would say to parents to not be afraid to ask for help. Having that shared power between me and the teacher is a wonderful feeling.
Jones is now working with Christiana's teacher to understand where she needs help, and she's seeking learning opportunities outside of school for this summer.
A good mixture of both summer camp and summer education at the same time. I love solutions.
Parents understand that the school day is not just 8 to 4, it's 24/7 all the time, 7 days a week, because that's really when kids are learning and applying the learning that they have in the classroom to the real world.
There have never been more resources available than right now to help kids get back on track.
I wish I knew sooner about Christiana's education. Then I would have been able to do other things to help. I'm glad that I'm finding out now because it is still time to be able to fix everything.
There's no sign of his ending.
Of this ending.
Oh, I didn't see that. Of this ending.
To learn more about how you can help your child this summer, check out gobeyondgrades.org.
So any key takeaways from the video? We're going to discuss a few of them as we go forward. Please put them in the chat. If there are questions in the chat, I cannot see the chat. Our colleague Laura is looking through the chat. Questions will be at the end. So now we're going to talk about assessments. Benchmark assessments, district assessments are conducted 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. The purpose is to measure students' performance against grade level expectations, with a focus on K through 3, where foundational skills are crucial. Students in K through 3 should receive a literacy universal screening assessment, in addition to whatever other assessment districts are using, such as the STAR or iReady. Unlike report cards, these assessments provide an objective measure of where a student is performing academically. These tools track students' growth over time. We mentioned that they do it 3 times a year, Reading screeners help identify students as well as the other district assessments of students that may need additional support. Regular data collection ensures timely interventions. And we're going to talk about those in the next few slides. The Smarter Balance Assessment is a standardized assessment. They're administered grades 3 through 8. These assessments measure proficiency in key academic areas and are tied to classroom grades. Some key takeaways are that grades do not tell the full story of a student's learning. Regular assessments and progress monitoring, which we'll talk about a little bit more, provide a more accurate picture of academic achievement. It's important to consider multiple data points when evaluating a student's performance. Students may work hard, complete assignments, and participate actively, but still struggle with grade level skills. Home
Jovi,
and
could you slow down a little bit? The interpreter's having a hard time catching up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Homeschool communication and homeschool partnerships are key, and that's what we're going to talk about on the next slide. So these questions that we've shared is a way to communicate, and it's a way that parents as well as educators can communicate, and communication goes both ways, right? Having information and sharing information with parents. I apologize.
Sound it out. What's the first 3 letters say?
Sharing information with parents actively, and parents, these are some questions that you can ask questions of your educator, your teacher, is a good way to build that relationship, that communication, and family engagement. Parents often think and see that report card as a tell of where their student is academically, right? So parents can ask questions as well as educators can share this information as to where a student is reading at grade level, which assessments have been administered, what do the scores mean? Because if we have the assessments and we have the scores, but we don't understand what they mean, the parents still can't, they don't know what that number means and how that relates to their child's grade level expectation and where they're performing at. And how can the parents support the child at home? We have a resource here, which is hyperlinked. It's your child's right to read checklist, which is very helpful. Now, the next few slides have a lot of information, and CPAC is available anytime to go into a deeper dive into any of these questions. This is just meant to be a quick overview. So we're going to start with response to intervention. RTI is a multi-tiered approach that helps identify and support students who are struggling academically. In Connecticut, we call this SRBI, Scientific Research-Based Intervention. SRBI uses research-based strategies to help students who are struggling to make progress toward grade level expectations. This model ensures students get the right support at the right time based on their individual needs. Here we have it listed as a pyramid with each tier offering a different level of support. So we have tier 1, which is a high quality evidence-based instruction for all students, differentiated teaching and universal screenings, like we discussed in the slides previous, positive behavioral supports and inclusive practices. Tier 2 is targeted interventions. These are supplemental supports for some students, small group interventions for specific needs, short-term focused instruction, frequent progress monitoring. And then we have tier 3. Tier 3 is intensive interventions. This is a smaller group of students. It's one-to-one, very small group instruction, and it's intensive individualized support. It relies on data and progress monitoring to guide instruction and intervention. It is designed to help students close the grade level performance gap before special education is considered, but should never delay a referral to special education or evaluations if a disability is suspected. This intervention promotes equity and access, giving every student the opportunity to succeed through evidence-based practices. So this is progress monitoring as it relates to research-based intervention. Progress monitoring helps track how well student supports are working and whether they are making a real difference over time. We have two graphs and two different examples. For example, the two graphs, the solid black line is the grade level expectation, while the dotted black line is the trajectory based on students' data points. The gray line is the student's data point. Student A started at 26 words per minute. This is the example that we have, and they increased over time to 56 words per minute. That's strong progress. While student B started at 24 words per minute and only reached 36 words per minute. That slower growth suggests the current intervention isn't effective enough. So if we look at the trajectory line and the solid black line in student B, which is your graph on your right, you will see that there is a big gap between the solid black line and the trajectory line. We are trying to close that gap. As you can see in the first picture, that gap is really close together. If the data shows that there's good progress, perfect. If the goal is simple, the data is to guide decisions and to make sure every student is moving forward. If we've adjusted the intervention several times and the student is still struggling to progress, the team may consider a referral to special education to explore if additional supports are needed for the student. Again, we want to focus on that school-family partnership and communication. So these are some information that can be shared with the parents, and these are some questions that the parent can ask if a student is receiving SRBI intervention. What type or tiered intervention are they receiving? What skills are they working on and how often? How will the progress be monitored and shared with the parent? How long will the intervention last? What happens if there's not enough progress? Is there a structured literacy approach being used with fidelity, and what is that literacy approach? And now we want to discuss when it is an appropriate time to make a referral to special education. When a student is consistently performing below expectations on benchmark assessments, report cards, or even on state assessments like the SBAC, and isn't making enough progress with SRBI, which are the interventions that we talked about, the progress monitoring data and patterns we see are ongoing and the student is still struggling to make progress or is having behaviors such as refusal or withdrawal, which can be a sign that the student is avoiding, right? They're avoiding to read and therefore they're having behaviors. This may mean that we want to take a closer look for an underlying disability. In those cases, the next step should be considering a special education referral to make sure that the student gets the right kind of support and with the intensity that they need it. There's also the obligation of child find. Schools are required to identify, locate, and evaluate students who may have a disability. So some key takeaways here. If a student continues to struggle academically or behaviorally, a special education evaluation should not be delayed. SRBI and evaluations can happen at the same time. Both processes work together to ensure that the students receive the supports they need to succeed. So once a referral to special education, how do we make a referral to special education? So who can make a referral to special education? A student, a parent, a school personnel, an educator, and outside agencies. A referral can be made through the standard referral form, which is ED 621. The referral form has been hyperlinked in the slides as well, but it's not mandatory. A parent can write a letter making a referral to special education and comprehensive evaluation. Any formal written request for an evaluation will start the referral process. Once received, the district must respond within the required timelines, and there is a 45-day evaluation timeline. And I want to emphasize that that is school days. It is also best to submit your concern in writing so that you have documentation when it has been submitted. After a referral has been made, or special education referral has been made, there's a planning and placement team meeting, often called PPT1. This PPT meeting reviews the referral and supporting documents like benchmark assessments, data, SRBI progress monitoring. At this meeting, the planning and placement team can deny moving forward with evaluations or making the student eligible for special education. In that case, we have a hyperlink here for you that has your procedural safeguards as well as your parent's guide to special education, which will walk you through your parental rights. At this meeting, the planning and placement team can decide they need more information and would like to conduct comprehensive evaluations before determining eligibility for special education. The team is not denying eligibility, but wanting to gather more information through evaluations and reconvene at a later date to discuss the results of those evaluations. At this meeting, the PPT team can decide to determine the student eligible for special education based off of the information that they have. They feel that it's enough information. If they have made the student eligible, they will complete a multidisciplinary evaluation report. This report brings everything together: test results, classroom observation, teacher input, and parent feedback. It helps paint a full picture of a student's strengths and weaknesses. This document is specific to students who are specific learning disability or specific learning disability dyslexia. Now, once a child has been made eligible and the MIR has been completed, the team develops an IEP, which is an individualized education program. This includes with parent input. The plan will include student present levels of performance, measurable goals and objectives, services, and any needed accommodations and supports. The PPT meeting is a decision-making point where everything comes together, and parents should feel empowered to ask questions, seek clarifications, and make sure that the team truly understands their child's challenges and needs before moving forward. Now, as I mentioned in the previous slide, if the PPT team decides that they need further information and comprehensive evaluations are to be conducted, there is a second PPT, which is often referred to as PPT2. At this meeting, the planning and placement team can decide to determine the students eligible for special education based off of the information that they have, and they will then complete the MIR, which is the multidisciplinary evaluation report. And then they will also develop an IEP, which is an individualized education program. And again, a PPT is a decision-making point where everything comes together and parents are part of that team. I know that that was a lot of information that I shared and a lot of dense information that I shared. But again, CPAC is here if you have any questions, and we'll have some time at the end for some questions. Siobhan? Siobhan?
I apologize. I muted. I apologize.
That's okay.
So now to move into different areas that can be assessed. If the PPT determines that the student needs to be evaluated, it is important that a comprehensive evaluation is conducted. The Connecticut State Department of Education has created a comprehensive document called Connecticut Assessment Resource Guide for Specific Learning Disabilities in Reading and Written Expression. It's really important to read through that prior to your PPT if you're a parent. And teachers, I would encourage you to do the same. I think collaboration and really looking at that document to see what areas need to be assessed is important so that you can make sure that all areas are being assessed. So parents, we suggest you bring a copy of this guide to your PPT for reference. And on your screen are the different assessment areas listed in the guide. And in the guide, it also talks about the assessment area, and then it gives suggested assessments that can be done for those. If your child is receiving intervention for dyslexia, they'll likely be receiving a structured literacy intervention. We have included a link to a video that explains the different parts of a structured literacy lesson. I really like this video. It goes through one particular reading program. We're not endorsing that particular reading program. However, what I like about it is it shows each different part of a structured literacy lesson. So it's helpful, I think, for parents or educators who are not familiar with structured literacy to be able to see the full picture of what their child's lessons or what the student's lessons should look like. Well, unfortunately, I don't think we have time to show it today because we're kind of getting to the end of our night. But again, it's going to be included in the slides, the link to it in the resource page, and you can view it at a later time.
We want to point out that the video is 30 minutes long, so it's not that it's not a 3-minute
Right.
video that we can share. It's a really detailed video.
Kids learn how to read.
Yep.
Kids learn how to read. Which techniques are
Okay.
especially helpful for kids?
Okay.
So typical intervention for a student with dyslexia includes a structured literacy approach to reading and spelling. A typical instruction is given either one-to-one or in a small group, usually no more than 6 students. Literacy names that you may hear Orton Gillingham, or commonly called OG, the Wilson Reading Program, Spire, Eberly, or Reading Simplified. We're not making any recommendations for specific intervention programs. We're just giving you a few common names that you might hear. And I think that a lot of times when we speak to parents, that's one question that we ask them to talk to their team about is, what does the intervention look like? In addition, a student that has dyslexia may have other needs and may need additional services. For example, academic areas that require specialized instruction in mathematics, word problems, and math facts, for example. They might need occupational therapy to address fine motor needs. They might need social emotional support with the school psychologist or a social worker. And we have a great panel coming up next week, I believe, that will talk about the social emotional impact. Additional services should be based on a student's present levels of performance. So basically what I'm saying here is that a student can have other needs besides reading, and that needs to be based on their present levels of performance, their goals and objectives. Dyslexia can impact in certain areas in math, such as math word problems and math facts. And students that have dyslexia can sometimes have a writing disability, such as dysgraphia, and a math learning disability. Some students that have dyslexia also have ADHD and many other disabilities. So to end our presentation today, I want you to walk away with what we know. As a parent, you do not need to wait for school personnel to make a referral to special education. School personnel, you can make a referral to special education. Students are learning to read in kindergarten. By 3rd grade, they should be reading to learn. Tiered intervention is not a reason to delay evaluations. This process can occur at the same time. Studies show that early intervention is critical. If you're seeing red flags and your child is not making progress or your student's not making significant progress in SRBI, consider assessments. If you wait to assess or intervene, the gap gets wider. So we have some contact information for CPAC here and the Office of Dyslexia and Reading Disabilities and the Bureau of Special Education call center. To speak with the Office of Dyslexia and Reading Disabilities, her administrative assistant is listed on this slide. You make an appointment through email is probably the best way, or by phone, and they will set up a time to speak with you. CPAC and the Bureau of Special Education call center, you can call them at any time. If they do not pick up the phone live, please feel free to leave a message. I know that educators, sometimes it's tough to fit this in during your school day, but we want you to know that if you give us a day and a time that you're available, we'll do our best to try to reach you. So we have some resource pages. We have two pages of resources for you, but if you're looking for something specific, we can absolutely try to do some research for you and get that to you. Feel free to give us a call and let us know what you need.
I will share the link in the chat for the survey while we go through questions. If you can please complete the survey. It's very important. It's the way that we can improve and receive feedback. So I will go ahead and put the survey in the chat. And then we'll have time for questions. So bear with me while I get the survey up there.